It's the 24th of October. In 2021. Hope everybody's doing good tonight. If that's possible. We got a poll up tonight. Should it be illegal or a crime or a criminal or to kill people with radiation? Hello everybody. Should it be illegal to poison people with radiation from nuclear power plants, dumps, bombs, etc., and hospitals? And somebody don't think it should be illegal to murder you? That's what I mean. The nuclear industry are actually lunatics. They're actually lunatics. And we're up to 15 votes with a resounding 93%. All of those people you see there are me. I was just playing around. Here's another one where I stuffed holes in reactor 4. My apologies. I stuffed the holes in reactor 4. That's my timer. That's me hanging out of the building in reactor 4. Yeah, they faked reactor 4. They sure tricked everybody with the reactor 4, I tell you what. Anyway, I was revisiting, these are 4 or 5 years old. And I had shot I remember I started playing around with these little skits. And the little D's a bit racist in this skit, but it's okay. Don't worry about
Time to come in, we're gonna go to the mall and get something to eat. Where you to? The mall, we're going to the mall, we're going to the mall. Little D, are you ready yet? Hurry up! The mall, we're going to the mall, we're going to the mall. I'm hurrying. Yeah, Dennis, hurrying. I said hurry up, little D. Come on, let's go. We gotta get moving. The mall's gonna be closing in about half an hour, so hurry up. No way. You can tie your shoes. Come on, let's go. Hurry up. Tying. Okay, I'm tied. Little D, you like Mexican food? Woo, Mexican! I love Mexican! Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! Mexican! How come Mexicans don't have an Olympic team? Well, anything that can jump or swim is already in the USA, little D. How come Mexicans don't have barbecues? Well, the beans fall through the grate because they're so small. Why do Mexicans wear pointed shoes? Well, they do that because it's easier to get over the fences. What's the first 3 words in every Mexican's cookbook? Well, every cookbook in Mexico says you gotta steal a chicken. How many Mexicans does it take to screw in a light bulb? You're a racist. It don't matter. They're too short to change the light bulb anyway, little D. Are you sure this is Mexican food? You don't look Mexican. I think you're trying to get me to eat Fukushima food. I'd call the social services and tell them you touched me. No, I'm not trying to get you to eat sushi. Okay, I go get ice cream.
Dana's a racist. I can hear it now. Send your hate mail to Dana as a racist at 1-800-PISS-OFF. So, Representative Caddy Porter's press Biden's team on Marshall Islands nuclear waste gets a few answers. Now, there's a bomb crater and another bomb crater. And so that bomb crater up there, they put in nuclear waste into it in 1971 or something. 40 years ago, the U.S. buried radioactive waste, which was long after the testing, right? They went back and cleaned up a little bit. Why not clean it all up? For months, the U.S. refused to accept responsibility for linking radioactive haywire in the Marshall Islands. Marshall Islands over 1 million square miles contaminated. On Thursday, members of the Congressional Oversight Committee scolded representatives of the administration for not making more progress. They're waiting until everybody dies, and then they're going to have a settlement for everyone. It's ghost. It's absurd, isn't it? Offered conflicting statements, which is unusual, really. It's also home now to the Ronald Reagan Ballistic Missile Defense Test Site. Evil never stops, eh? Doesn't take a day off either. This location halfway across the Pacific allows the U.S. monsters to monitor the future victims, and is also an important hub for the kooky, wacky American space program. There is no space program per se. There's an agenda. 3.1 million cubic feet of radioactive waste buried in the estimate. Who knows, really? Which is 87,000 tons, basically. 87,000 one-ton pickup trucks of nuclear fallout. Or nuclear waste, excuse me. Where'd that come from? It's usually two of these fillers, isn't it? And for decades now, the U.S. government has pretended that Marshall Islands don't exist. What they done to the Marshall Islands was just horrific. That was such a cowardly thing to do. Well, I mean, it's nuclear. What do you expect, right? So they want the Marshall Island people. Most of these people are illiterates, extremely impoverished. They want them to deal with the nuclear waste. Are you surprised? The nuclear industry loves that. Not only because they don't want university students going there and seeing it. No, let them deal with it. Give them a pick and shovel. The IAEA is like, Marshall Islands? What Marshall Islands? Oh, there's no waste out there. That's a lie. You take that back. You won't even give them paper suits. At least in TEPCO, which shouldn't be in charge of Fukushima, gives them the homeless paper suits. Which means nothing. It's the equivalent of nothing. The United States detonated 67 nuclear bombs. Well, actually, like the Castle Bravo was equal to 1,000 Hiroshima bombs being detonated. The radioactive fallout is the same thing. Remember the unlucky Dragon ship from China or Japan that got polluted? There was more than that. That was the one that made it into the news, right? vaporizing whole islands, carving craters into its shell, which was 100 miles away, that ship was. But Ground Zero never got contaminated. But sailors 100 miles away, oh yeah, they got brutal, Dana. But not the Marshallese, not the endless victims of the nuclear industry, no. Exiling hundreds of people, not hundreds, everybody from their homes permanently. It's just shocking. The whole story is revolting. It's time for me to do another presentation just on the Marshall Islands, because it's hard to articulate in just a few moments. U.S. won't clean up the Marshall Islands nuclear waste dome, but wants it free of anti-U.S. graffiti. Remember that story? They won't clean up the mess, but they don't want anti-U.S. graffiti on the tomb. So they actually went there and cleaned it up themselves. But they wouldn't clean up the dome. Testing of sea creatures in the surrounding lagoon, including clams, showed high levels of radioactivity. Well, look, there's over 1 million square kilometers of the Bikini Atoll is radioactive. It's only 1 million, Dana. I know. Go look up the study yourself. And extends over 1 million square kilometers and severely impacted the habitability of the affected atolls. So 1 million square kilometers radioactive. That's the nuclear industry. That's what it does. And the U.S. government does have an obligation. And then sticking the locals with the lethal, you can't call it residue, it's over 3 million or 80,000 one-ton pickup trucks of radioactive waste is not residue. Or at least I hope it's not. I guess it is when you think about all the bombs they tested. It's still an absurd amount. So you got these victims with no technology, no institutes, no universities, zero funding, and they're like, the government's like, well, shut up, we'll come back and blow the rest of you up. That's what we do. Back to Xeon Light again. Now, she was a sleeper cell that was embedded in an Extinction Rebellion, which was created in 2018 to drown out people like me and Kevin Blanch and a few more of us. Former Extinction Rebellion activist. She wasn't an activist. She was a sleeper cell. She was planted there by the nuclear industry. No climate change if the world embraced nuclear power. A former spokesperson. Now, she also, she works for Michael Schellenberg, Environmental Progress. He brought her in. He planted her originally and then brought her out and used her. Now, they're trying to use her, I should call it. It's a sin to call her a her. She's not a her. Show you what I mean coming up. She has zero emotions. And then she demonizes older people. Boomers. This is radioactive fallout from Fukushima, pulsing energy every second. This is the Neptunium, decays 239, decays to plutonium 239. Xeon light. I don't know if she's real, because it's hard to imagine anything as ugly as that as a human species. Xeon scumbag light. Says climate change will not exist if boomer environmentalists. So the minute that you advocate for a future, you're an environmentalist. had not failed us and embraced nuclear energy decades ago. She's blaming us. This is global warming. It's an invisible plumes. This one in particular is fallout from Japan. Multiple reactors that have melted down, pulsing energy every second. Pulsing energy at the speed of light, covering the entire planet and the ocean all the way to the ocean floor. Miss Lady's become a key voice. She's not a key voice. The pro-nuclear media puts her up on a pedestal and claims that she's a convert, right? Arguing the group had lost their way. They only been around for a little over 2 years. They never did have a way. They were probably created by the industry because they screech about climate change and demonize everything but nuclear. Anyway, Xeon Light, in an interview with Michael Schellenberg, had told him, this is one of her first interviews she had done, she helped keep Extinction Rebellion from protests in nuclear power plants. She was an unofficial spokesperson. Had become a key voice in support of nuclear energy after leaving Extinction Rebellion. She was a sleeper cell, a double agent for the nuclear industry. She still is. And it's very scary that people that's the nuclear industry's tactic, is to use sleeper cells. We have another name for them from years ago. They're called agent provocateurs. And they get into a group, and then whenever there's a protest, they're the most violent. And then that is a catalyst for the thugs to come in now with spray, pepper spray and sticks and beat everybody up, right? And then the media is always right there with their cameras ready to go to catch them in the act. Always catches them in the act, even though there's only one single act. But all the media is there in the one corner waiting for the bank's windows to get broken on cue. Police are around the corner with their sticks. Okay, they broke the window. Go get them, boys. They're called agent provocateurs. You'll find them at most large protests worldwide now. All countries do it. Cesium-137 immediately damages the heart muscles. So these plumes are not harmless or innocuous or benign. These are lethal plumes to all species. She gained infamy across the world since its formation, or Extinction Rebellion has, with activists gluing themselves to city streets and destroying public properties in the name of climate change. And of course, climate change can easily be checked right back to the radioactive fallout from 75 years of nuclear accidents, nuclear dumping. The nuclear weapons that they were setting off, that's a nuclear war. Like some of them nuclear weapons, one of the Soviet nuclear bombs was equal to 3,800 Nagasaki weapons going off at the same time. The radioactive fallout would also have been the same. Would have created plumes similar to that. Except Fukushima were China syndromes, where it was constantly releasing a continuous plume. A continuous plume until it covers the whole planet. Continuous plume still coming out today. Pulsing energy every second. It's climate change. And they're going to try to blame it on your tin cans, your pop bottles, and your cardboard. A key part of protecting, well, basically you, right? Of cows, farts, and you. A key part of protecting the natural environment for my children, said double agent sleeper cell from the nuclear industry, is nuclear energy. That is just a fact, little monster said. A key part of protecting the natural environment for my children is nuclear. First off, 11 becquerels a kilogram of cesium, the children are consuming it in their food or their water. Children start to see permanent heart problems. Irreversible heart problems for children with 50 becquerels a kilogram of just cesium, which is really, it's a nasty tracer. So now you can extrapolate plutonium, uranium, curium, isotopes, which is the biggest byproduct of the radiated fuel rods when they melt down. You need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium, which is named after the devil because it's so lethal. And you don't need 50 becquerels a kilogram of plutonium to destroy a child, I can guarantee you that. Or a bird, or an animal, or an insect, or a mammal. She said there was a growing push to adopt nuclear power by younger climate activists. See what she's up to? Demonizing older people and then trying to bring in the younger people. They're a sleeper cell, the Michael Schellenberg and Xeon Light Group are. They're a sedition what they do, right? It's actually a crime. Activists were open to any solution rather than the older boomer generation of environmentalists. Again, labeling you, but not labeling herself, right? The media loves to label you. They want to label for you. So they didn't send the young people into Fukushima. 16-year-olds should be prepared to die at Fukushima. Imagine if the headline was, young activists should be prepared to die at the Fukushima plant. Concerned half of Japan to be covered in nuclear waste. Not just nuclear fallout, but now it's nuclear waste. 60 and older should be prepared to die. People have worked all their life to make the country better. Now they should be disposed of like paper towels, while the younger ones can rear up and destroy everything. Rather than the older boomer generation environmentalists. You despicable piece of scum. Seniors sought for frontline radiation cleanup in Japan, not young people, not activists, but victims. They're going to make victims of the people that worked their whole life and don't even get to finish out their life and enjoy it now that they had worked all their life, all busted up, arthritis, all kinds of health problems. Let's dispose of them. That's Xeon Light. That's the nuclear industry. That's the mentality of the nuclear industry. You know they're scum nuclear industry when you start seeing them using this rhetoric. Seniors sought for frontline radiation cleanup in Japan. 16-year-olds should be prepared to die at the nuclear meltdowns. She's praising the younger and demonizing the older generation, just like the nuclear industry's legacy. You think that's an accident that she takes that narrative? Frankly, those environmentalists have failed us. Demonizing everybody that done the right thing, the moral and ethical thing, the difficult thing, being honest. If we had embraced nuclear technology decades ago, we would not have climate change. Here's a radioactive study of per liter rainfall, 220,000 atoms of just iodine-129 pulsing energy every second per liter. There's another model of the radioactive fallout plume covering the Pacific, North America, now covering the Atlantic and Europe. Just because the model stopped, the plume didn't stop. It never stopped coming out even today. This scum, degenerate, creepy light. So people in the environmental movement had for a long time confused energy with weapons. You don't speak for me or anybody else, you despicable double agent. You despicable sleeper cell against humanity and 8 million species. You coward. You trash. Miss Light said, people in the environmental movement, people who seen the entire habitat ecosystem that the entire planet is dependent upon being destroyed and spoke out, you're an environmentalist. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? I don't confuse it with, look, I mean, this is what nuclear energy done to the whole planet. Look, covered it in radioactive fallout, absurd numbers, pulsing energy every second. Nuclear is fallout, and she's advocating more of it, but in a gross and despicable way, in a cowardly way, in a traitorous way. It's just horrific. And then, of course, Sky News Australia pumping it out there on top of that. Let's not forget this is Australia is using her to bludgeon reality and humanity with. So Australia refuses to develop nuclear power, surprised her and did not make sense. Nobody cares what you think, moron. Stick to your own country when it comes to that. They have legislation not to poison their own countries with nuclear, just poison everybody else with yellow cake. What a scumbag. She said, if you really want to stick it to the boomers, she's calling for all out war against elderly people who worked all their life, which is typical of the nuclear industry, see? Of dangerous, scum, degenerate nuclear industry that are telling us all how to live with less. And you could show them you can't create a decarbonized future but still give everybody who talks like this? Abundant energy, high quality of life, just isn't causing climate change. Just a single nuclear power plant breaking down threatens mass extinction around the world. Coal plants don't do that. Oil plants don't do that. Gas plants don't do that. Xeon light is a direct result of Fukushima melting down and vultures coming out of the darkness looking for ways to capitalize on the extinction event. That's what xeon light is. A horrific, despicable coward. And all the media was pumping her out. They can't come up with a single face that's appealing to the whole planet, and I guarantee you she's not ever going to be one. Even Australia can't come out with their own, they can't pump out one of their own people. They got to go to the United Kingdom, which blew up all kinds of nuclear weapons after the wind was going to blow towards Australia. They detonated the nuclear weapons and covered Australia with radioactive fallout. Peddling messages of doomsday gloom that alienate and offering little in the way of positive solutions. Well, first off, renewables last year, in a 12-month period, there was over 300 nuclear power plants worth of renewables came online. It's 261 gigawatts. There's 0.04 gigawatts of nuclear came online in the same period. So which one is likely to get us to energy quickest? Is obviously going to be renewables, but nuclear has so many despicable facets. It's the worst energy. It's not even, nuclear is an accident, right? It's not, it's got so many bad attributes. First off, it's only about, at best, 25% efficient. The fuel is only 5% efficient. It becomes very brittle, and that's why you put it in fuel pools. We're still splitting the atoms for millions of homes, except that's released directly into the environment because the fuel pools have no containment. Hence the reason they're surrounded by farms. The fact that they built 99% of reactors in the middle of massive farmland should terrify every single human on this planet forever. Every generation should be terrified when they look back at what the nuclear industry had done. Pumped hydro can deliver 100% renewable electricities. Worldwide, they found 500,000 spots where you can naturally pump water up a hill with excess energy from renewables, say, right? So, or stored, any kind of energy, you can store it. But see, renewable, you can't use this with nuclear because nuclear can't slow down. It has to run at full speed all the time. But all the other resources like coal, oil, and gas, you can pull back on them. And for peak power, you can use pumped hydro. And you can also use compressed air. You can have both of them, where excess energy is stored by pumping it into 120 psi caverns, major caverns underground. So you can put enough pressure there to last you for 2 weeks. And you can have recycled water, pumped hydro, for peak power, for your 6-hour peak power each day. In an executive interview with Sky News, as if she's so important. It's like getting an interview with Bill Gates, is it? What they're trying to do is put her on a pedestal for the children, see all the tattoos on her arm, right? She told Chris Kenny for his going nuclear to clean energy debate, there is no debate. When you're using a known mark like this, a sleeper cell like that, a double agent like this, that's not a debate. That's sedition in Australia. Australia should be arresting Chris Kenny and this disgusting parasite and giving them death. They don't have a death penalty in Australia, unfortunately. So have them accidentally drowned or something. And then they show you this cartoonish appeal to the young generation again, right? And it's scary that she actually has children. That terrifies me. Citing a corporation's report that has a horrific legacy, United Nations has never stood up for the Marshallese people a single time. It's never stood up for the Fukushima homeless a single time. They were created immediately after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. United Nations was there to get, all of a sudden they understood, oh, we got something new here, big, and we can shut down a country and get them to surrender. That was a big moment. They created this so-called United Nations. And the people that get positions with United Nations from different countries, they earned that position by being super evil, by having an incredible legacy of hideous, monstrous deeds behind them. By the way, they used all the resources in North America for nuclear power plants, all the precious metals, all the best cement, all the best steel, all the best of the best, all the best wiring, everything. So for decades it's gotten us nowhere. It hasn't happened. Behavioral scientists have not found a way to make people magically to have a huge reduction in how much energy they use. But the behavioral scientist words, I was like, why is she invoking that? I wonder. She argues reducing emissions means increasing electricity use. That's what she means by it. This is double talk. You'll see it once in a while in the industry. It's not a mis-sentence. It's not a mistake when they translated the sentence. That's actually on purpose. Ms. Light argues reducing emissions means increasing electricity use. Yeah, that's a tongue twister, isn't it? Here's what happens when your nuclear power plant breaks down. You cover the planet, the entire planet, in radioactive fallout. The first thing you do is almost a complete kill-off of the phytoplankton, the basis of the food chain, the oxygen chain, the carbon sequestering chain. That moves up to the zooplankton, which works as up. And a lot of species are dependent on the phytoplankton, by the way, as a direct source, let alone, because it's the basis of the food chain, it works its way up to the bigger animals, but it's also the biggest producer of oxygen on the planet. Incredibly effective. It lives at the surface of the water, and particularly oceans. The plumes cover both the Atlantic and the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean with a sustained plume. It's the worst case scenario. No terrorist could pull this off. Xeon Light Group, though, they can pull it off. They did. Right, so she got lots of traction. I noticed this. Lots of traction. So they had a big fire at Sellafield, which is in the UK, where this disgusting, despicable, coward, scum, double agent is from. The sleeper cell is from. Crews tackle a fire at Sellafield nuclear site. Sellafield, in case you're not familiar, nuclear reprocessing site. They forgot the word reprocessing. Surrounded by farms. Try wrapping your mind around that one. A nuclear fuel facility, I'll show you. There's more than that. Firefighters dealing with a fire at the Sellafield nuclear site, and the fire broke out in the early hours of the morning. And a Sellafield spokesman said a small fire was discovered in the building associated with the MOX reprocessing plant, the mixed oxide fuel facility at Sellafield. That's the mixed oxide fuel facility. They call it MOX down there. It's illegal here. There was no radiological consequences, and all personnel have been accounted for. They kept it nice and sweet, and the last sentence, there was no radiological consequences. You can't have a fire at a mixed oxide fuel facility in that particular part of the facility without some kind of radiological releases. And so why did it go silent? They'll all get medals of bravery and weekends off. I put together a little video from a documentary. The first time they had a fire down there, they went out to the theaters and volunteered everybody in the back 2 rows of the theater.
The police from the factory had turned up looking for volunteers, and they brought a bus, and they decided the best way to get the volunteers was to go to the cinema and volunteer the back 2 rows at the show to go into the factory to, as it turned out, to help push the fuel rods out of the reactor.
Wrap your mind around that one. They didn't go to nuclear plants and look for volunteers, or nuclear universities and look for volunteers, or nuclear companies. No. Let's go to the theater and get the 2 back rows. And remember, back in those days, rich people sat up in the front. There's at least 8 million liters a day coming out of this facility on a daily basis, 2 million gallons a day. But look at this, the Sellafield. Look at the farmland. Surrounded by endless farmland. So it's kind of wondering, why does every child in England have plutonium from Sellafield in their teeth, I wonder? Councillor praises the fire service after... Councillor praises. Look, I mean, why would you have farms alongside a despicable reprocessing facility? Killer hot particles, Sellafield coast like Chernobyl and Fukushima exclusion zone. That's the definition of evil right there. Having farms is bad enough around a nuclear plant because they're always hemorrhaging radiation. That's why they build them in these places. But to have a reprocessing plant in the middle of prime farmland that had already had multiple meltdowns, has 8 million liters a day hemorrhaging out of the facility, highly radioactive water, which means there's huge emissions. And then in order to make the mixed oxide fuel, you have to release copious amounts of radiation. And so the solution is surrounded with farmlands and poison everybody for hundreds of thousands of miles. The fire which broke out in a building associated with a reprocessing plant on the nuclear site. Well, that's all it does there, right? It reprocesses fuel from all the reactors. The claiming there was no radiological consequences But I mean, like, the so-called authority in the United Kingdom and the medias and the universities in the United Kingdom, I don't know, like, I always feel bad for the British people in the United Kingdom because their media is despicable, unbelievable. Like, these are despicable savages. So is the universities. I mean, coward of the cowards. They still won't recognize the Navy victims from all the bomb testing. 50 years of brutal diseases and illnesses and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries and illnesses and cancers. And they still won't acknowledge that he got sick from the nuclear testing. Yeah, why don't you go out there and sit down, put your hands over your head, and we're going to detonate the nuclear bomb. You're going to feel a big puff of wind. Take a big deep breath and you'll be okay. It was actually in their mandate to do it to people and study them for the rest of their life. It's called human experiments. It's still going on today. Another one is Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Why would you build Hiroshima and Nagasaki back on the bomb crater? So they can study them, right? For 75 years. That's exactly what happened. That's what we've seen happen. And I covered the anniversary this year. That video is actually on my site, this new site. They took down my other site a little over a month ago with 24,000 subscribers. Sellafield Fire and Rescue Service responded, and they'll all get sick and die from this eventually. Southern California reacts to the death of Colin Powell. Despicable coward Colin Powell. Mass murder, genocide machine, Colin Powell. He's a hideous soul, man. He's in hell now, rotten, thank goodness. How the battle versus Bataan nuke plant was run. That's actually a good story. How they kept nuclear out of Manila. They built the plant, but they managed to... That happened at the same time as Chernobyl. And so they were able to stop them from putting fuel in it. It's the record of our resistance is a new book that they got out. Is the power of the people versus nuclear power in the Philippines, nuclear-free nation. And they actually went to war many times, and they used to bring the military in, and you can imagine how vicious the military was against the protesters. Many of them were killed and still missing. And then you can see all the profiteers, the misery profiteers. Miseries and mass destruction. What a stupid society that we keep doing this over and over. We just keep repeating the same mistakes over and over and over. There's a commitment to promote a nuclear-free homeland for the survival of human life, which is appropriate. It's an appropriate statement. A Geiger counter is cruising. 299 just in. That's a great read. Farmers and workers were the first ones to fight, and they were brutalized and killed and disappeared. It's a fascinating read. Put the title back up for anybody. How Battle vs. Bataan nuke plant was won. It's a pretty long read. I'm not going to do it everybody night, but it was a great story. And a lot of people sacrificed it all, but they ended up winning. ISA give up 50,000 aid to 11 members for a demonstrative solar project. There's still 9,000 people in India that were charged with sedition for protesting a nuclear power plant after Fukushima. They're still being dragged through the court systems today. So it's surprising that they even let solar show up anywhere. Political leaders, activists demand scrapping the nuclear plant's expansion. Permission given by the state government to set up third and fourth nuclear reactors should be withdrawn immediately. An independent inquiry should be conducted into the frequent outages of the 2 nuclear reactors under operation. Yeah, they should. This was a little disturbing. Union shifts political support over nuclear energy policies. So big unions were encouraging their members, which is not their job, by the way, to vote for certain politicians. So it's a big influence when you can take 60,000 people, have them vote for a degenerate politician who destroys millions of people's lives, so the union can get a few parties. Speaking of degenerates, Rosatom Director General. It should be a crime to give these people those types of labels. To visit Armenia, impoverished Armenia, to discuss construction of a new nuclear power plant. Well, they won't even take the spent fuel rods back from India. They can't even control their own. So if Armenia does that, they're just going to poison their only farmland they got there, because you know they're going to build it in the farmland. Smoke from nuclear war could threaten global food supply. No, it's radioactive fallout that threatens the food supply. So when they done the taser bomba, and which was equal to 3,800 Nagasaki bombs, 3,800, that's a nuclear war, right? That's the animosity equivalent of a nuclear war. And all the nuclear testing was a nuclear war, so it didn't fill the sky up with smoke, it didn't block out the sun, and all the plants didn't die, blah, 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 right? See, nuclear testing is a nuclear war. There's no difference. The same bombs, same radiation, except, unfortunately, there were bigger bombs you would use in an actual war, like the Soviets' taser bomb, whatever you want to call it, was equal to 3,800 Hiroshima bombs going off at one time. Is that not a nuclear war? If Russia and China fires 1,900 Hiroshima bombs at the same spot, is that not a nuclear war? And all the nuclear bombs they set off on the planet, they said, oh, there's less than 2,000, Dana, or there's around 2,000. Yeah, some of them were equal to over 2,000. It's hard, you can't call the taser bomb a bomb when it's equal to 3,800 Hiroshima 15 kiloton size bombs. And Castle Bravo in the Bikini Atolls was equal to over 1,000 Hiroshima size 15 kiloton bombs. So if Russia and America fires 500 Hiroshima bombs at capital Rome, so they're having their war in Rome, in the city itself, and you fire 500 bombs from one direction, Hiroshima bombs from one direction, 500 Hiroshima bombs from the other direction. Is that a nuclear war, yes or no? If they all go blow up in the same spot, is that a nuclear war? Of course it is. Because they done it. It's called Castle Bravo and Taser Bomba. Nuclear collaborations. It's like anything to the United Kingdom, just cringe when I start to read it. Like, oh God, I gotta get a shower now after I read that. UK Atomic Energy Authority. There is no authority. They've never decommissioned a submarine or a reactor or... So Donneray, they're one of the reprocessing sites, scumbags. Donneray, they figured it to be, you can use it in about 300 years, give or take 100. There'll be nobody there to say, you were wrong, scumbag. Oh, yeah, 300 years. Lots of money, lots of money, lots of money. For 300 years. Nuclear so carbon free makes me sick. They are already both partners in the Nation Nuclear Users Facility, along with degenerates from the University of Manchester's Dalton Cumbria facility. The Cumbria is right alongside of Sellafield, right alongside of Seascale, right? Nuclear wasteland. Memorandum of Understanding. They shouldn't be allowed to use words like that because they're monsters. Monsters shouldn't be allowed to be eloquent. Agreement reflects the fact that blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Each have a great deal of technology, skills, experience, capability, resources, and laziness. Yeah, that's the whole problem. They gave them all the authority, all the monetary, all the equipment, all the blessings, all the health care, you name it. We gave them everything. They still won't do the job. They're just greedy scum. Nuclear plant in Nagata to be inspected soon. Is that some kind of sick joke? Because the regulators to check anti-terror measures. Oh, that's right too. It failed and they closed the plant down. Because they're worried about terrorists. Like, terrorists is what they done to you already. Done that again today. Nuclear is terrorism. Every facet of nuclear is terrorism. It's the whole story. Decommissioning small medical, industrial, and research facilities. IAE, this is from the IAEA degenerate site. The homeless in Fukushima would be pretty proud to have that sort of bit. Right? You won't see the homeless and you won't see the workers in Fukushima with suits like that, baby. And you won't see the IAEA at Fukushima either, by the way. Cabinet approves replacement for 56-year-old nuclear reactor. 56 years old. It's disgusting. Oh, South Africa. Poor South Africa, man. There'll be some 5,000 direct to 26,000 indirect jobs. Journeyman's wages is 30 cents an hour, I think, or something like that. Comes with a pair of sneakers. The nuclear reactors, this nuclear industry got its claws into Africa. And they'll wreck Africa now to get their another nuclear reactor. They'll wreck the whole country if that's what it takes to get it. This is sad. NASA should be disbanded and they should create a new organization. And none of their ancestors or their children are ever allowed to work in space agencies again, is what they should be doing. Lifetime Achievement Award. And they give her a vase. Work your whole life for a scumbag organization, you get what you deserve, I guess. Glaze remarked on the successful partnership between NASA and the Department of Energy. There is no Department of Energy, they're the military-industrial complex. And that's one of their handles, Department of Energy, that has enabled more than 25 space science missions carrying nuclear power systems. A few of them blew up and radiated everybody and everything on the planet, right? With plutonium. Like the nuclearproctologist.org is a think tank, and I advocate no nuclear in space at all. So when I see headlines like that, that enrages me. That's despicable. That's disgusting. So nuclearproctologist.org is my site. It's a good site. It's a real site. Now you can call in 709-589-4406. I don't hide away from anybody under any circumstances. Unlike the nuclear industry, that's all they do. 25 nuclear power systems shot up into space. China's doing it, Russia's doing it. It's disgusting. All of them should be arrested for doing it. It should be completely illegal to do something like that. What have we got going on here? So we got a poll going on here tonight. Let me bring that up for everybody. Should it be a crime to poison people with radiation from nuclear plants and dumps and bombs and hospitals? 39% says, or 95% says yes. Bizarrely, 95% says no, or 5% says no. It shouldn't be a crime to poison everybody. That's the nuclear industry, right? Actual lunatics. This June marks 60 years since the launch of the United States' first nuclear-powered spacecraft. Well, humans can't go past Van Allen radiation belt. Might as well get rid of NASA. Well, we can't go past the belt. What's the point? Like, males can't spend 2 years in space. They'll go blind. But not females. That shows you women are superior. They're meant for space travel. My fear is if we discover a planet, right, the nuclear industry, like, we got to get a nuclear reactor up on that thing. That's the end of that planet, right? So that's why my organization, nuclearproctologist.org, the think tank, the nuclearproctologist.org, we advocate no nuclear in space and no nuclear on the oceans and no nuclear on Earth. No nuclear. Come up with solutions and just deal with what we've done. Don't create any more of it so that we can have a future. This planet can have a future generation and species and an ecosystem. Indiana Energy Task Force turns its attention to something that don't exist. Like, literally the stupidest thing imaginable. Instead of coming up with solutions, we're going to wait for them to develop it. In other words, we're not going to do nothing. Swear allegiance to the nuke-tard industry. Sure don't exist. You're morons. It's a pipe dream. You won't need it because renewables are just, their capacities and they're cheaper every 12 months by far. They're twice as efficient every 16 months or so. So if you're waiting for small modular reactors, you're part of the problem, not part of the solution. They were touted as safe, but they don't exist. Not only that, they're going to be using mixed oxide fuel on top of that. To focus on a promising but unproven technology. So what facet of that is confusing for them, I wonder? Distracts from existing options that are ready to be deployed today, which is correct. Not only is all this R&D money being sunk into small modular reactors hurting renewables, it gives them an excuse not to make investments today that should be making. We have clean, available, cheap, off-the-shelf technology with solar and wind. There's energy several hundred feet down you can tap into in the earth, right? There's tidal power. There's all kinds of amazing people out there developing incredible technology that can be scaled up. Brussels delayed decision on how to classify nuclear power from green financing. That's the third time. Because, you know, the minute that they say nuclear power, because they only need a couple of people from the nuclear industry to get those positions, and they go like, yeah, that was clean. Kill the whole planet, see? It's not supposed to be in the conversation. Nuclear is not clean. You can paint up that pig all you want. It's still a pig, okay? Put a wig on it, dress on it, lipstick on it. It's still a friggin' pig. You wake up in the morning, you roll over. That's still a pig. Nuclear. News about Brussels delayed decision because that story couldn't get access to it. Scumbags. The Financial Times, pro-nuclear stories, you get all kinds, like with the apologists, right? Propaganda. They'll get the whole story every time. Comes to something salacious, no, get nothing. You got nothing. Nuclear energy which produces no CO2. It's absurd to suggest that nuclear produces no CO2. It's absurd to suggest that nuclear somehow can't have a future without being honest. This is an accident from Japan, covering the whole planet in radiation, from the stratosphere to the ocean floors. Invisible snowstorm, pulsing energy of heat, pulsing energy every second for millions of years. Oil, gas, coal emissions don't pulse energy every second for millions of years, and they don't make plumes like that. There is no debate. Nuclear is the last thing we need. We don't need it. It's not supposed to exist. His entire legacy is predicated upon deception and misrepresentation, aka lies. Its entire existence. But whose waste byproducts are toxic for the environment? It's not the waste that's toxic for the environment. It's the waste is still splitting the atom, releasing the atoms into the environment, pulsing energy every second. If it assimilates into humans or plants or animals or mammals or insects or birds, or the 8 million species, it gets inside their body and pulses energy every second. The body attacks it with white blood cells for decades and builds a tumor around it if you live that long. What that does is it weakens your immune systems, makes you more susceptible to pathogens and viruses that were normally benign and innocuous and harmless. Europe's pro-nuclear countries led by degenerate France. And of course, France gets its uranium from Niger, where it's got a 60-something year civil war going on there. Destroyed every life in the country. They destroyed every piece of infrastructure in the country. They destroyed all the authority in the country and the board, got rid of the borders, got rid of the pensions and the patents of the country so they can get cheap uranium for their reactors. That France, who radiated every single individual in the French Polynesian islands, who radiated Algeria and many of their major communities and cities with absurd amounts of radiation. The whole, like every facet of nuclear. It's a symphony of evil and hate and monsters and coward. It's a coward industry on top of that. I put my number up there every night on the screen. Every night, my number goes on that screen. The nuclear industry can call in any time you want. Say, Dana, you're wrong about this, or Dana, you're wrong about that. And they didn't a single time ever in over a decade. Advanced reactors could bring nuclear as the creepiest creature we've seen on our planet is that creep right there. Something that don't exist. That it's his company, therefore he needs to make his profit. Something that don't exist can, could, might, would, and perhaps. You don't have it, shut your pie hole until you got it. Don't keep feeding people a fantasy that you can't back up with documentation. Really, right? They don't have it, shut up. Indiana's Energy Task Force turns its attention to something that don't exist. Just the definition of stupid is right there, look. That's the definition of stupid. Turns its So you're seeing this rhetoric, aren't we? Of pushing these reactors that don't exist, pushing nuclear that could take 20 decades to get it up to running speed, if ever. Like it's an incredible orchestrated attack upon my senses because I peruse the nuclear search engines. We need nuclear power to meet our climate goals. This is absurd assertions. You need nuclear to go to Tim Hortons. You need nuclear to get But see, when you see all the media hammering the unsuspecting, the unwary, the very vulnerable segments of populations with that narrative, that should terrify you. So that's the Pacific over there, it's the Atlantic over there. This is Canada up there, United States, and everything else. Europe is over here, Iceland, Greenland's up there. Covered in radioactive filth, radioactive continuous plumes, covering the planet, pulsing energy every second is global warming. Access to reliable, and then the words low carbon, we've only seen that since the Paris Accord. And it shows up now in almost every single paragraph constantly. Crucial to fighting climate change for it's too late. So what's the point of putting out that story? You think you're going to get Extinction Rebellion out there screeching for nuclear power? There's only a couple of groups out there, right? Extinction Rebellion, I'm not sure if that's a military operation or what, but it's very suspect, particularly with Xeon Light. Our modern society depends on a steady supply of baseload power. Although renewables are going to play a vital role, the sun doesn't always shine, the wind doesn't always blow. You've got pumped hydro and compressed air storage. So you can do scaled volumes. And that's the end. That's your solution, right? Australia. Man, Australia's been taken over by the nuclear scum. Australia received UK nuclear waste shipment amid bitter dispute over a national storage facility. 2-ton load to be stored at the Sydney Lucas Heights experimental reactor, because you do actually got a reactor there, until the national facility was built in several years. What's this? What do you mean, built in several years? The shipments of 4 500-kilogram canisters, 4,000 pounds, inside a forged steel container from United Kingdom to Australia. They shipped back. They took Australia's fuel, made mixed oxide fuel out of it, and shipped the rest of it back to Australia. It's still splitting the atom, and it has to be vented. So Australia's getting a huge dose now every day from an extra 4,000 pounds splitting the atoms, which means trillions and trillions and trillions of atoms being released in their country. Every day from here on out. Every hour from here on out. And so they talk about Kimba. Kimba, of course, is farmland. Prime farmland. Some of the best farmland in Australia is in Kimba. And they want to put their so-called deep geological repository in Kimba. Now, what are they going to be putting down in that deep geological repository? Medical nuclear waste. So it's okay to put it in you, yeah? But whatever's left over got to go into a deep geological repository because it's dangerous for thousands of years. Do you get what's going on here? They use the nuclear in hospitals to murder you. It's a genocide machine. I'll show you coming up. It's a 100% genocide machine. In 1996, Australia sent spent fuel rods to the United Kingdom to be recycled into mixed oxide fuel for nuclear power plants to irradiate the farms and the communities. The federal government says Lucas Heights does not have the room or approval to store the nation's nuclear waste, which is spread across more than 100 sites. Yeah, well, Lucas Heights doesn't have the authority to store it or the approval, but neither does anything else in Australia. They have the authority to have a reactor there. They have the authority to make the fuel in the first place, but they don't have the authority to store the fuel that they made in the first place. That's your excuse. That's your kooky excuse, is it? That's your lucid excuse. Well, yeah, we can make the fuel and use it, but we can't store it after that, Dana. We're only human. Well, at least we look human. Anybody calls somebody in the nuclear industry a human should get a $100 fine each time they do it. And so the locals in Kimba, there's native indigenous community that lives close by, they weren't allowed to vote on the farm. Most of the people that voted were just the locals, not Australia. They went into a community that was impoverished, promised them jobs, threw some money around town, and then asked them to vote on having a repository in their farmland community. All of it reeks in desperation of the nuclear industry, the evilness of the industry, the way they've done it. They've done the same thing here in Canada, of course, everywhere else. You'll see that same pattern in every country. So start coming up with an actual repository far away from populations and farmlands and infrastructures and stuff like this. No, they want to put it dead smack in the middle of a highly productive area, and they want the farmers to keep working the whole time. Don't lose a day's work. For goodness sake, we need you to sell that radioactive food and destroy humans worldwide. Because that's how this works. It's the definition of nut. Right? The definition. A future Europe of renewables and nuclear energy. It's hard to believe the picture they're using. Nuclear power cooling towers, nuclear power sites surrounded by farmland. Try making that up on your own. A future Europe of renewable and nuclear. Despicable coward. Cancer therapies, this is probably the scariest sentence imaginable, or scariest 2 words. Cancer therapies. Cancer therapies and nuclear material detection gets a boost from newly discovered protein. Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. Like, I wouldn't take anything from Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. They came up to me with $1 million in a suitcase and said, "There's $1 million, here you go, Dana." They're like, "No, man, you're from Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. I'm not taking my chances. I'd rather not have the $1 million. 3% efficiency chemotherapy treatments on cancer cure. This was a study asking, why are we using chemotherapy in hospitals? It was originally done in 1985, repeated in 2004 with the same result. And the result was to estimated 2.3% in Australia who got chemotherapy survived longer with it than without it, and 2.1% in the US. Problem was your quality of life went boom, rock bottom. And 3%, by the way, is the estimate typical misdiagnosis of cancer. Yeah, there's 3% of people will get chemotherapy, but they don't even have cancer. But you only got 2.3% in Australia, 2.1% in the United States that lived more than 5 years after getting their body massive pulse with radiation through their bodies. Radiation injuries induced to the visual pathway. So when you get radiation therapy, you're going to wreck your entire body. I'll show you what I mean. Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. Right? And so they had 800 people there that had disabilities from cancer, were out on, got a pension for getting cancer working there. And they had another 800 was waiting for it, another 800 that was rejected with cancers from working at that despicable thing. But they got a cure, they got a protein now. You get a boost from a new protein to chemotherapies. New generation drugs used in cancer therapy. This is from Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. From the murderous Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. Radiation injuries to the heart. You get treatment for a tumor somewhere. This is what happens. You get radiation injuries to the heart. You get brain injuries from the radiation. You get breast injuries from the radiation. You get brain narcosis from the radiation. You get spinal cord injuries from radiation. Radiation-induced bowel injuries. Radiation-induced rectal injuries. My favorite, late rectal radiation injuries. What is the science? We done this on Friday and Thursday. What is the nuclear EMC effect? Scientists shed light on a mystery, physics-defying nuclear science is many things. It's powerful, potentially dangerous, ultimately still not totally understood by scientists. We're taught in school protons and neutrons make up the center of all atoms in the universe. And the atoms is got electrons going around it. Blah, 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 blah. And you got the nucleus. Let me see. You got inside of the neutrons, you got quarks. So basically, what the big problem is, they got a few variations, up quarks, down quarks, and stuff like this. So the problem was they were trying to figure out, is there something inside the quarks? Right? So is there some hidden energy inside? And if they come up with that solution, they might take matter and antimatter and blow everything up, and that'll be the end of it anyway. So it's probably better if they don't find anything. Because if they do find it, they're just going to weaponize it and use it against the 8 million species. But string theory kind of fills in most of the key properties. And string theory, so a string can take many shapes, right? Not just round or straight. It can take all kinds of wiggly shapes, you know? So it, and it pulses energy every second, has this unique energy. Think of it like radiation fallout in one sense. So what scientists, anyway, they're trying to figure out what's inside of the quarks. Because the quarks is, you look inside of everything, you work your way down the scale all the way till you get to quarks. And when you get to there, they're kind of stuck there. Now you don't know if there's something else. And if there's something inside the quarks, then what's inside of that to make that, give that its properties, right? Has some incredible, unique properties. You're talking about protons and neutrons are bound together by a force of about 8 million volts. But quarks are held together by a force of about 1,000 million electron volts. Right, so there's some really unique, weird property going on there that we're not able to wrap our mind around it. But as soon as you go down that rabbit hole, you talk about how you can take if we lived on a 500 billion mile wide sheet, say, right? But then that has this property where you might be able to, instead of having to travel from point A to point B, you might be able to just fold time, so to speak, and travel through it. So instead of traveling for 500 billion miles, you might only have to travel 1 billion to get to the same point. This is what they're hoping. So they're going to waste hundreds of thousands of scientists are going to waste their entire lives trying to come up with this riddle or working on principles of it, instead of coming up from solutions for the Marshall Islands or Hanford or Hiroshima victims or for Fukushima ongoing meltdowns. They won't come up with solutions for that. But they'll spend trillions and trillions of dollars and hundreds of millions of years of work hours to unravel this mystery, because if you don't, big deal, you had a career, right? You got lots of money and you had lots of cocktail parties and everything else. You took no risks your whole life. They want to take the brain power and put them to work on stuff like this rather than nuclear, because they want nuclear to hemorrhage into the environment, to kill the planet. They hate the planet. Exxon, Department of Energy pitch in on $92 million digitalization upgrade at Limereek's nuclear station. You're going to like this. So look at the picture they gave you, a Limereek nuclear power station. That's the picture from the media. Go look up your own pictures and you'll see this. Surrounded by farmland, as far as you can see. You got their picture from the newspaper, but when you actually look at it from another angle, this is what it's looked like. They were trying to hide the farms. Look at that. Because this is what it actually looks like. Poisoning everybody who eats the food in these farms. So I think the poll tomorrow night will be, should it be illegal to have farms around nuclear power plants? How's the poll going tonight? Should it be illegal to poison people with radiation from nuclear plants, dumps, bombs, and hospitals, etc., etc.? 6% said no. That's amazing. So it shows you, like, why would anybody say no to that? How is that not a good idea that 47 people voted? Wow. Amazing. Hang on here. Okay, let's keep her going here. So, like, yeah, should it be illegal? I'll probably use this picture for the show tomorrow. And then for the poll will be, should it be illegal to have nuclear power plants in farmlands? If you close down every nuclear power plant in farmland, we wouldn't have any problem because all the plants would be gone. They're doing that to poison you. It's on purpose. They build them in farmland. It's on purpose to poison people. It's just wow stuff, yeah. Mini nuclear reactors. Again and again and again, we're seeing this, something that don't exist, vie for key role in UK push to hit the climate targets. There is no climate targets. It's not climate targets. If there was climate targets, you wouldn't be using nuclear. You can't change all the nuclear release into the environment, pulsing energy every second at the speed of light. You can't change that. The planet's going to continue to heat up. So what they're doing is, it's an absurd betrayal. What the nuclear industry now is doing is they captured the regulators, the universities, the medias, key positions in government, and now they're so evil now, it's just going to work every day. It's just a job now, right? Evil is now just a job. What's holding nuclear energy back in the U.S.? Well, it should have been Santa Susana, which was 460 times worse than 3 Mile Island. But when 3 Mile Island happened, that was the end of the nuclear renaissance, yeah? It certainly should have been 1959 when they hit away the sodium reactor at Santa Susana, which is still melting down. What's holding back nuclear energy? And they got that. Why is Yahoo Finance regurgitating oilprice.com articles, I wonder? Nuclear is the only option that does not emit vast amounts of CO2. What kind of kooky bird brain freak of nature would regurgitate that narrative? For this reason, believe nuclear energy technology be revisited as complements to intermittent wind and solar. Intermittent. Because they won't look, if you took 1,000 universities and put them to work on storage, That'd be the end of that equation, yeah? Have a competition for storage, so pumped hydro would win big time, and so would compressed air technology, because you can, with excess energy, you can have endless renewable electricity that way. Sustained too, right? Because you don't need water. You can use compressed air. Future Sizewell C and Walfa nuclear power plant proposals become clearer. And look, this is a demonstration model of the Sizewell C. And it's going to be built in farmland. Look, it's not even built, and they got it plopped straight down in the middle of massive farmland. You can't, like, how can you call that normal? You won't see a coal plant plop down in farmland. You won't see an oil plant plop down in farmland. You won't see a gas plant in farmland. But every single nuclear power plant, where are you going to put it? Well, wherever there's farmland, what about the farmers? They got to keep working. You can't poison people if they're not working. This is what they're up to. You tell me that's not evil. Tell me it's not evil. I dare you. I double dare you to tell me that that's not evil. Double, triple, triple, dare you. Dare you, triple, double. Declare TN a nuclear free zone, says leaders. The unscientific disposal of radioactive waste from nuclear reactors was likely to increase the risk to the public health. That's being very polite. Good chance I wasn't there. Experts say some of the reasons for the disaster at Chernobyl, Fukushima were similar to the existing conditions at Kudan Kumlam, he said, pointing to the issues of disposal of radioactive waste from the reactor. Said the Union government has continued such activities and were dangerous. Union government. That's a scary name. It should announce the location of deep geological repository. They put it 1,000 miles away from people. You got and get it somewhere where it stops splitting the atoms. The problem is if you don't vent it, it builds up right away. And when you introduce oxygen back into where it built up, it'll detonate or a spark. So you turn on the light and boom. And these detonations are incredibly powerful. They used to use uranium, depleted uranium, matter of fact, or uranium for fracking. So they added a few grams uranium to the explosives and turned it into a small nuclear bomb. Very powerful combo. Since our last look, another thing about nuclear bombs that really bothered me, and I used to cover this years ago, was wherever they set off a nuclear weapon, one of the strange things that they had discovered was that it changed the structure of water for around 1,800 miles in any direction. The water changed the structure. So normal structured water, which you don't get because you have taps and chemicals and electricity and electrolysis, right? But natural water, coming down a mountain, running over the minerals, restructures itself. And you can do it by freezing water and letting it thaw out. But structured water, when you grew plants in it, they grew 30% quicker, sooner. They matured 30% sooner, had 30% more foliage and 30% more fruit, say, on it, right? And also, structured water was known to unplate your blood, which means cancer, because cancer grows and plated in your... One of the things about cancer is you'll notice your blood was plated up, is what you'll discover. And DCA will unplate your blood too, and so will structured water. Structured water is just deep well water or mountain spring water. It's extremely good for you. It's unbelievable. Your body is not designed for water coming through a tap with electrolysis. It'll change the structure, but you're adding chemicals to it and everything else, right? Your water is designed for structured water. Scientists don't know why it does that, but they do know how to change it back. There are devices out there you can buy. The scientists is the only thing can exist in all three: liquid, gas, and frozen, right? It's the only liquid that can do all three of those properties. Since our last look at uranium stocks in late September, the future price has risen by 8%. This was because Sprout here in Canada had bought up physical uranium as a scam, a Ponzi scam, artificially inflate the price of uranium stocks. Commodity prices of uranium not reached the level since the summer of 2012. That's pretty scary. That in 2012, uranium was still hitting $50 a pound. That's scary, right? It was artificially inflated by a stock market company as a Ponzi scam to artificially inflate the prices so they can make a quick couple of $100 million. That's all that was. And the industry went along with it because it was good for the industry. Uranium price began rising in mid-August thanks in part to the launch of an exchange-traded fund that was going to hold most of its assets in physical uranium. Now, they didn't physically take it and put it somewhere. They kept it where it was, but they own it. The fund launched was a war chest of $300 million, a war chest. Because this is what they see it as a war, right? They got all these cheap stocks that they've been gobbling up for the last decade, and they want to cash in. And the only way they can cash in is if uranium stocks come up. But because uranium, the nuclear industry is floundering, thank goodness. But for them, what they done was they artificially inflated the stocks. It's dirty. It's a dirty. It's a crime too, by the way. So when you look at it, there's a lot of trading going on. Let me come back here. Denson Mines is doing 14.5 million shares daily trading. Every day, 14.5 million. Uranium Energy Corp is trading 6.6 million. Energy Fuels is trading 4.9 million every day. Next Energy Generation is trading 2.4 million shares. So there's a lot of money there. We're talking a lot of money. You're talking 35 million shares being traded every single day in uranium stocks. That's real money. And they want to be able to trick people into buying the shares. They'll artificially inflate them, get the retired people to start investing their money in it. And 2 weeks later, they pull the plug on it and walk away with everybody's money. They've been doing it for 10 years now. 10 years of robbing everybody of their life savings. And then feeding them food from around nuclear power plants to get rid of them. World on Horns, a dilemma with transition away from nuclear power. World on Horns of Dilemma, on evil and the devil's horns is appropriate, I suppose. Instability of renewable energy supplies and prices are driving some countries like Japan, France, UK to rethink movement away from nuclear power. No, there's a big push on. In fact, normally in a 48-hour cycle, I'll get 45 to 50 stories, right? Gathered up. I got 195 in the last 48 hours. That's an abnormality amount, not extremely unusual amount of headlines to get in a 48-hour cycle. I've been doing this for years and years and years. I've never seen that. Monday, the Japanese National Press Club, which doesn't exist, they're controlled opposition against humanity right now, hosted a roundtable of political party leaders. It's because they're going to have a vote, I suppose. It's laughable to call them journalists now. International Energy Agency Executive Director Fate Byral, the atomic play bunny, who I burned at the stake I don't know how many times in my dreams. share the view that the percentage of electricity from nuclear power needs to be roughly tripled by 2050 to achieve carbon neutrality targets by that year. See, this is ludicrous assertions. You know, there's no science to this. This is voodoo shit. This is like taking chicken bones in a cup and throwing it on the table and said, there you have it. The chicken bones don't lie. In the last 12 months, in 2020, in a 12-month period, it was 261 gigawatts of renewables. The animosity equivalent of 300 nuclear power plants came online. 261 gigawatts. But it was only 0.04 gigawatts of nuclear came online versus 261 gigawatts, 300 nuclear power plants worth of renewables came online in 12 months last year. So nuclear now is going to assassinate every creature on the planet to get another couple of years of paychecks out of it. New wind and solar up 50% globally, right? And this year will be up another 50% or 100%. The 2020 the global net increase in renewables was 261 gigawatts. Capacity of some 300 nuclear power plants. There's only 414 operational plants on the entire planet as we speak. So those who argue we absolutely must construct more nuclear plants to beat the climate emergency are clearly scumbags, are clearly degenerates. Clearly. I said that with a heavy shoulder. And don't buy food from these deadly prefectures. There's 14 of them. 55 countries had them banned because they were smart enough. Hey, what do I know? I only cover this all day, every day, 365 days a year. Mom! I can see nuclear scientists right around the world. Mom! Come down, Dana's fear-mongering. Nuclear scientists in every country now. Calling for the moms to come down to the basement because Dana's fear-mongering. Look. Let me show you something again. I'm only telling you 500 more times. Global warming is radiation. It's released into the environment. Plumes that cover the entire planet's invisible. Can't see it or smell it or taste it or hear it or feel it or touch it or pick it up or throw rocks at it. There's pulse and energy at the speed of light. You know how much energy it takes something to do the speed of light? Do you? Can you invent anything that can do almost the speed of light? Can you? I want an answer right now. No, you can't. But nuclear can. Every single atom does it. They make the atom a little bit bigger, and now it's ionized. And it pulses energy for billions of years, every second. I know this is going to seem incredible, but we got 8% of no's, and 92% says it should be illegal to poison people with radiation from nuclear plants, dumps, bombs, and hospitals. For some strange reason, we got 8%. That's absurd. There's got to be a few people here to just gaslighting us, maybe, right? So 53. Hang on. So there's actually 5 people said it shouldn't be illegal to poison people with radiation. See, because if you made it illegal to poison people with radiation, they couldn't poison you in the hospital. Then it would be illegal to murder you in your hospitals, right? Fukushima radioactive fallout is global warming. Not maybe, not could be, not might be. It is. And if you're not going to take this charming young feller's face for it, whose are you going to take? Because the nuclear industry don't have a single spokesperson on the planet that even comes across as lucid. They all comes across as crazy, batshit lunatic, right? I've never seen anything in the nuclear industry that didn't permeate, I'm insane. An invisible plume covering the entire planet, pulsing energy forever and ever and ever. Gas, oil, and coal can't do it. Only nuclear has that attribute. And they hid it away for you for 75 years. Do you want revenge? You want revenge, right? I know you do. You want revenge. We can't change what you've done, at least let's get some revenge. See why the nuclear industry don't like me very much. Being honest now is a crime, right? Being a good person is actually a crime. Having a moral compass now is considered a crime in a world ran, the universities, the medias, key positions in government, the regulators, all been captured by this despicable, hateful, disgusting, coward industry. And like if you're walking past a bunch of pro-nuclear people and you fart, or your car backfires or something like that, they'll all defecate, all of them. They take training, they'll defecate right on the spot, they'll wipe themselves down with excrement so that you won't beat them up or something, right? Because they feel like if you're pro-nuclear, you should have to wear a pink bunny suit everywhere you go. And then everybody should be allowed to, everybody should get like a little Freshie stick. You remember you used to get the Freshie in the plastic straws? You get one of those big plastic straws, and you get spitballs, and whenever you see a pink rabbit, you know that's a pro-nuclear. You start spitballs at them, right? By law, you have to do at least 12. Every person when you see somebody in a pink rabbit suit from the nuclear industry. That would be a perfect alternate universe if string theory was real. Okay, well, I'm going to end the vote with 55 votes. 93%. An amazing 93%. Said nuclear scumbags. I agree. So we end the poll right there. Yabba dabba do. Let me give a boo-hoo to everybody. We got time? Yeah, we got time. Good night, everyone. James Oldhand, hugs my friend. Ted Richards, hi Ted. And Tim Norris, hi Tim. Shane Clark, hope you're feeling better, bud. Michael Schill. Dana Nasana, hi Dana. My eyes are bad tonight for some reason. That didn't help. I just think my eyes are bad. You know how your eyes sometimes will degrade? Mine seems to be degrading a little bit quicker than most people because they got me contaminated brutally with radiation. Timo Patrick. Hi Patrick. Usul, URSULE. Where can you get uranium water tests? That's a good question. I don't know if there's any safe spot on the planet. Which is a scary statement, isn't it? Good night, everybody. I hope everybody has a great night, great day tomorrow. I was thinking of I got almost 1,000 headlines to catch up. got 1,000 headlines to catch up. James Lucid. Hi, James. Johnson. Ah, yes. Yeah. William Joseph. Daryl Murray. Kevin Morgan. Oh, we got a donation there to cover tonight. From Jason D. We got 44 Canadian. Thank you, Jason. I got the donation. Bless you, my friend. We've done a lot of going the weekend, and my oil light kept going off, and I had to pull out a couple of runs this last week. I changed the oil myself tonight. I couldn't get someone else to do it. I done it out in the garden in the rain tonight just before it got dark. The weather breaks and when I head down the coast, we got birds washing up on the coastline, emaciated. Port Angeles. Ella, Sandra. Hi, folks. God bless all of you and hugs for everybody. Colette S. I was just wondering where you were too. You made a comment, but I didn't see it. There we go. We got everybody in. It's a hard show to do tonight. We got her done, and we'll see everybody tomorrow night. Hope everybody has a great night, great day tomorrow. God bless and hugs for everyone.
Wir betreten Feuerturm